no matter where you work, it seems they're always going to say safety's number one around here. Seems like that's what they always say. If you're doing any kind of production or warehouse work, they're going to say that. When you're first hired on, they're going to talk about safety first. The question is, to what degree do they actually put their money where their mouth is? How safe is it? In my experience, companies will often preach about safety, but then when it really comes to putting that in practice, it's a completely different story. It's sort of like you get hired, you do the 1 day safety. Sometimes it's just you watch a 30-minute safety video from like 1990 when they shot it, and everybody just rolls their eyes and laughs at it, and then you get put out on the floor, and then you meet that old experienced coworker who tells you how it really is. It's unfortunate because workplace safety culture comes from coworkers. It doesn't come from somebody wearing a suit telling you how to open a box with a box cutter. That's not how safety works. What you need is everybody looking out for everybody else. And I feel like corporations have caught onto this, and they sort of just throw it on you. If you see something, say something. That's what they all say now. It's almost like they want to put the burden and responsibility on you. So if something happens, they can come back and, stand up and grandstand and talk about how we need to be better at looking out for each other. But it's laziness. It's corporate laziness, and it's also them being cheap. They're being really cheap when they do shit like that, because it costs money to create a culture of safety in a workplace, especially. And if you're working at a place where it's like, this is how it's done, this is how we've always done it, you run into that to where complacency, can settle in pretty quickly. You can hang 100 posters in your break room talking about safety, but when it comes to actually people following the safety rules and the protocols, they're going to follow what the experienced workers are doing. And I've worked at places where people will follow the safety procedures when the managers are there, but when the manager goes away, then the more experienced coworker is like, all right, look, we're going to do it now. Let me tell you how this place really works. They give you the rundown, and then you start doing things real efficient. Then you start hitting your productivity goals. And you know what? In my experience, management knows that. They fucking know it. They probably even have on cameras, they're watching some of their employees, and they're watching them do stuff in an unsafe way, and they're choosing to not say anything because they're getting shit done more quickly. It's more productive. And that's the battle. You're always walking that line here in the US, unfortunately. Unless you have a union job where you can take it up with your union representative, you're always fighting against safety and productivity. And, here in the right to work states, you really have to look out for yourself. I've worked jobs where I've left. I worked a job one day at a glass factory, and I made it one day. And I'm actually kind of disappointed in myself that I made it one day. I should have, once I saw some of the safety stuff that was going on there, the lack of safety, I should say, I should have just immediately left. But I stuck it out. I finished the day at my own risk, and it was through a temp agency. And I called the temp agency, and I was like, hey, look, it's not worth me getting hurt for that pay. And I could tell just by the way that they responded to me that they were like, oh yeah, we get it. You don't have to go on and on about this. We know. We've had a lot of people there that it sounded like they've had a lot of people that, I don't know if a lot of people through the temp agency had been hurt at that specific employer, but it wouldn't surprise me. All the workers there that were working at this one company were telling me about stories where they had been hurt there and showing me all these scars from glass, and it's just unnecessary, man. It doesn't have to be like this in the workplace, but that's how it was. That's how it was at that specific place. But yeah, man, you got to look out for yourself here and everywhere, really. If you see something that's unsafe, man, it's not worth you getting killed, hurt, maimed. At the end of the day, you got to be able to go home to your family, and that's what is most important. Nobody wants to be that guy that's making waves when you're new. If you're running to management and telling on an experienced employee, then you're going to be getting that shit jobs at that place. When all the suits are around and when everybody is deciding to have the talk of safety and everybody's in a big group, everybody's talking this kind of talk. Everybody would agree with me like, oh yeah. But when it comes to like actually getting shit done, and when you're in that work mindset and none of the managers are around, man, I've even had people like roll their eyes at the safety stuff. Here's another example. One time I installed satellite TV for about a year. I was really young. I was like 22 or 23. And the guy that was training me, it's a fairly dangerous job doing that. You're climbing up on roofs, going in crawl spaces and attics. So I went through like this 1 week of training. They show you how to do it. And a lot of that involved safety as well. And then they sent me with this guy where I would just kind of follow him for a few weeks before I got my own van and would drive around installing satellite TV. And this guy was like just shitting on all the safety stuff. And I remember at one point, he was up on like a 2-story building that was like, the roof was like dilapidated. I'm talking like it did not look safe. And he weighed more than I did. He wasn't like a very large guy, but he weighed probably a good 40 or 50 pounds more than me. And he's walking up on this roof, man. And he's like, now, according to OSHA, I'd have to call somebody, get some fall protection. And he's like, he's talking like all this shit up on this roof. And I don't know, man, it was just a day. And I was so young, I didn't really understand it that well. And I'm sure I did some unsafe stuff working there. But I ended up leaving just because even at that age, I finally realized like, hey man, you could really get hurt doing some of this stuff. But I did not regret leaving that job. But man, that guy was definitely a character. One of those guys that you meet a lot in the South that are just outspoken about regulations. You know, there's so much, they go off on like tangents about how safety and all this is just a big waste of time. And man, I couldn't disagree more with some of those people. But that guy that trained me, man, I hope he's doing all right. That's just one of those things, man. A veteran employee can be a double-edged sword because at one hand, they're really experienced and they know how to get the job done in the most efficient way possible. But on the other hand, they're often getting these jobs done so quickly because they're cutting safety corners. From the company's perspective, they are trying to save money. That's what they want. They want to save money at all costs. So let's not give the company too much credit when they do like a safety course, or even for new hires when they pay you for a few days to learn how to do things safely. They're not doing that, in my opinion, out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing that because in the long run, they're going to save money. Because when somebody does get hurt, there's, workman's compensation, there could be lawsuits. It's a pain in the ass to hire somebody else. They end up losing money when somebody gets hurt on the job. There's so much to say here about this whole topic, but in my experience, working with some of the experienced people, they're the ones that are creating a lot more of the safety violations. And the new people, they just want to do it safe. They don't want to be getting hurt on a job that they just started. They're new to it. They're not jaded with the job yet. It takes a lot of workplace experience to get that, but if you've worked in warehouses or done any of that kind of manual labor work, you know that safety can be a hot topic around the workplace. And then the conversation can quickly go from like safety to talking about government regulations and then politics. And then next thing you know, you're talking politics with these people that you work with. And that's always been a challenge for me, a non-conservative living in Tennessee. That always becomes quite the skill, learning how to jump through those hoops and try to not piss anybody off. So, because then if you piss people off, it's like you get all the shit jobs. I've had that happen too. When you finally like open up to somebody down here that you're working with and they kind of really get to know you on this level and know your opinions, and it's not about me trying to like convince him. It's just this is who I am. This is what I think and what I believe, and take it or leave it. But then once you do that, I've found sometimes they're kind of an asshole to you. They don't like where you stand. I don't know, if for some people, not all people. I've had people that I've worked with that are conservative that treat me very fairly and are very good people to work with. I think, that is one thing I will say about the South, is there are a lot of people down here that work very hard. You can't deny that to them, but I think that they're just, with the safety stuff and the regulations, they're hard pressed to get on board with a lot of that stuff because they are kind of independent minded. And if a job has to be done, they look at it as like, well, somebody's got to do it. I'm here. I'm going to do it. You're paying me to be here to do this job. So that's commendable in one respect. In the long run, that actually is not the best path forward because it's not saving the company money. You don't want people getting hurt. Maybe I've beat this issue too much and I should just cut it now, but it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. The best type of safety culture comes from people being comfortable to say something in the workplace and not being afraid to speak up and point something out, even if it is pointing something out from somebody that's more experienced than them. But that's a lot easier said than done. All right, everyone, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.